What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe.
Going to have maybe a couple receivers out here in this contest against Nichols. One of the good things about some guys stepping up was the receiver position might have done it better than any position on offense. When you look at your highest rated players, highest graded players from this game, it starts on offense with three receivers, Lacey, Thomas, and Anderson. And I do agree with you. It's going to be a situation where, okay, well, you got a lot of receivers going to have the same skill set. And how are you going to maximize those players? I thought Aaron Anderson in the film told me this story as well, but like even live, I was like, okay, that's the guy that we were told he was. That's the twitchy, quick first step, screen game, quick game kind of receiver, and that showed up on film as well in my review. He wasn't that player last year. He wasn't. I don't know if he was injured. I don't know what happened. We were told he was that. He wasn't, and obviously he had something going on last year because it flashed for me. I mean, I thought he was a big player in the game. I thought Thomas, and he didn't play a ton of snaps on offense. He probably played 15, but I thought he was someone that when he was in the game, USC had a game plan for him. Like they noticed when he was in the game, and sometimes that can affect the game as much as anything. They even ran counter with Thomas one time. I loved it, and they got away from stuff like that, and that was the one thing that was frustrating. You motion Xavier Thomas, and he comes back, and he's running counter as a receiver. And look, 5-6 yards, but still it's 5 or 6 yards, and it's something that they had to, kind of be worried about. I thought there was a period in the third quarter where it felt like LSU was still trying to establish the run when they didn't really have to. It's like that was the thing that they were going to do. They were going to establish the run in that moment, and you're wanting maybe more from those three possessions or whatever it was. And you could feel it. I think we even talked about it on the broadcast. I understand wanting to establish the run, and we'll get to the run game here in a little bit. But that felt like the moment right there. And Taylor, I don't know if you agree, like in the third quarter, it just felt like, not that you took the foot off the gas pedal, but you were trying to force something that wasn't there.
You were trying to force a running game that wasn't there is what you were doing, because you were just talking about Aaron Anderson. When you had that drive with John Emery, you put him in there, he's running hard. You throw the out route to Aaron Anderson, he scores. You make it 17-13. I was looking at the people I was watching the game with, and I'm like, you can force a 3 and out, get this ball back and score again, this game's over. Yeah. You're up by 11 at that point in the fourth quarter. The defense forces the 3 and out, and your offense stalled out. And that's really when they continued to stall out. You kind of took the game out of Garrett Nussmeier's hands, which I did not like. You were not creative enough getting the ball to Kyron Lacey in big moments, which Kelly talked about yesterday. Yeah. Kelly said he has to touch the ball every single quarter. He did not. That was one of the big disappointments, because I think if you go down the field 24-13, you finally establish a running game. You have back-to-back scores with a 3 and out. I think that's it. I think you have all the momentum in this game.
Yeah, you certainly had chances to take that game over. Brian Kelly talked about it. We've all talked about it, and that was the thing. Again, one of the things that was frustrating to him in his post-game presser was the fact that you had the ball up 17-13 twice in the fourth quarter and didn't take advantage of that. And again, like, this isn't the same film that I watched a year ago against Florida State. There was some good things, but certainly not good enough to win the game, and that's what's troublesome. And we talked about the run game, and look, I'm not here to call out anybody that's had shows from the game Sunday until now, right? But when you say the run game, like, I need you to tell me examples and give me reasons why, and maybe people why it wasn't, like, as far as personnel, why it wasn't working. Because when I watch the tape, was the offensive line perfect in the run game? No, they weren't. I mean, they were really good in pass protection, but I watched the tight ends in the run game, and that was the weakest link. That's where you have to get better. the tight ends on this team were the lowest graded run blockers you had in the game. We're starting to see some video coming out of USC's linebackers kind of big boying some of the tight end play, right? And if you're going to be a team that establishes the run, and anybody that's played any level of football really knows this, the tight ends have to be a major factor in the run game. Certainly now and then, look, I mean, this is a little tongue-in-cheek, but not really, when you don't have fullbacks anymore. Like, if you don't have fullbacks, you're going to be in 12 personnel. 12 personnel is going to be one back, two tight ends, and two receivers. And you've got a very talented group as far as pass catchers. One of the best that there is in the SEC probably as far as pass catchers. But you have to establish the run with your offensive line, with your tight ends, and with your running backs. And we'll get to the running backs in a little bit. Too much sideways and backwards on contact. Like, that's not something that we saw in camp, and we haven't seen that in some of these guys' career. We saw it on Sunday, but I want to talk about the tight ends. Alondra, it's Kelly 17 here. I think it's the last one on the sheet, talking about that 12 personnel package and where it needs to go.
2 and 3 tight ends, that package needs to continue to grow. We have to be able to use it as an offensive weapon as well. We can't just put 2 tight ends on the field and say, we're running the ball. You know, it's got to be 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends on the field, and we've got to have some spacing and some vertical throws and things of that nature. So that's growing, and that has to grow here over the next, month or so.
It does. If you're going to be what we think you can be and what we talked about you being, that group has to raise their level of play in the run game. It is what it is. Like, Mason Taylor was fantastic in the game in a lot of areas. Struggled a little bit in the run game. Pimpton really struggled in the run game. Okay, and look, there's videos going across the internet of him getting blown up, coming across the formation. Look, those things happen. Everybody gets got. It's not just the blow-up plays, right? Everybody that's played football, that's been a puller, that's been a run blocker, you get got by somebody. That happens. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not just one particular play. It's in the totality of the game. If you're going to commit to the run, and again, it felt like that's what LSU is going to do in portions of every single game they play in, as much as the offensive line's been talked about, and again, I'm not trying to besmirch anybody, but go watch the tape. The offensive line had moments in the run game. The tight ends never really had that moment. And they have to, you can't just be one-dimensional. And look, I've seen Mason Taylor block. I've seen him be a willing blocker, and he certainly can handle his own. But if Pimpton's going to play, if Green's going to play, right, you lost a tight end in camp that's now at Wisconsin, and that was your run-blocking tight end. You have to raise that if you want to be the team with the identity that you think you can go out there and have. As far as the running backs, I don't know if BK talked about the running back rotation yesterday. He did? All right,
He did. I have it.
All right, let's play that sound real quick, and then we'll react to it.
I don't know that we have one. I think we have to continue to let this thing play out. Obviously, John did a lot of really good things. Josh does a really nice job in the things that we're asking. I think what we're down to is John continues to play. He's coming off an ACL. You're going to see him get better and better, and I think he just adds to the strength of the group. But I also think we've got to find ways to accentuate the strengths of each one of these backs. They're not all inside zone runners. They're not all guys that run a particular play well, and I think that's what we're kind of navigating now.
So the one thing that stood out to me, and he's right, we talked about it. I mean, we talked about it on this show, on the pregame show, on every show. They're different backs. All three of them have a different skill set. And so I agree, and I understand wholeheartedly what he's saying there. The thing that, to me, stood out on tape that was surprising was John Emery was the only back in this game that fell forward and brought the blow and never really took that shot. Even on the pass that he caught, it was a 10-yard pass. It was a nice play. He had a decision. He could, kind of go out of bounds right there, maybe try to move back inside. And he said, no, I'm going to lower my head, and I'm going to punish the defender for a yard and a half. The yards don't really matter. It was almost like it was a message. I'm going to impose my will because I can right here. This is a spot where I can go out of bounds or I can gain a yard, half a yard, but he can feel me. He can feel my presence here. And John did that consistently with his runs. The other backs, we know they can do it. We have seen them do it, but they didn't do it. Kind of going sideways, going backwards when they get hit. I mean, there's a couple of real shots in the game that I felt like you could hear in the press box almost. That's not who we've seen them to be. But John Emery's somebody that, during training camp, he wasn't like in and out of the lineup, but there was things like he was limited. He's coming off an ACL. Like he's on some special teams that, you got to take him out because it's like, man, coming off an ACL, how much can you really go? Well, however much that was in the game in Las Vegas, he's going to take full advantage of every one of those reps. By far the highest graded as far as ground attack in the game. Wasn't even close. In fact, Xavier Thomas in his one carry had a higher grade than the other backs. And so I just think that's a position that's going to be a running back by committee. There's going to be different guys all season long. But I'd love to see that mentality that we saw from Emery, from everybody moving forward. Because, look, we know Josh Williams can do it. Like, we have seen him have big runs and second level punish defenders. And we've been talking about Caleb Jackson doing it all offseason. That's like a lot of times we start bringing up running back and everybody's stopped us in our tracks to talk about Caleb Jackson. And look, we all get why. We played the highlight of him running the counter all the way. We played the highlight of him running over a linebacker, right? But that's got to go from the practice field to the game field. And so that was the one thing that did stand out to me about the running backs and kind of that rotation is John Emery was out there trying to punish defenders. And that was a very physical football game. And I credit USC for being physical. That was not the team that we saw on film. And they were the aggressor in a lot of one-on-one battles. And it was nice kind of on tape again to see Emery run behind his pads and have a pretty big day and give LSU an opportunity. Certainly in that one drive that was like the John Emery drive.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.